Welcome, and today we're going to have a little look at some pictures of the Civil War. Sometimes I have a bunch of pictures that I want to share, and it almost becomes overwhelming. And so I'm going to commit to this one: Richmond, Virginia, in ruins. In 1865. Custom House on the left, and the Virginia State Capitol. Rubble in the street. Rubble in the street in front of the Virginia State Capitol. So this, first of all, does not appear to be rubble in the street, but rather rubble on a very beautiful sidewalk with curb and gutter, mostly made out of brick, and this appears to be the entryway or a driveway. These gates would open, and this would be some sort of a courtyard or parking area for, I presume, horse and wagon in front of this glorious residence, and really seeming as if this residence and this state capital shared the same address at one point. And here in the background we can see a beautiful spire cathedral, really amazing. And 1865. So here in the Civil War we see this amazingness. And in the meantime, Abraham Lincoln is born in a log cabin the size of a small closet, and we have this kind of architecture right alongside him. And what I find interesting is the fire and scorch marks that we see back here all along these railings up here. Severe heat and fire, and again something that really cooked this building. I imagine there was another building similar to this one perhaps on this side, and it has been demolished. And here we just have some remnants of what's left, and at a glance it looks like a cement or concrete, but it's not. It's just perhaps stuccoed over what appears to be 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4 layers of brick. And 4 layers of brick, and it's been brought down to a pile of rubble from a fire. We're also told that the Civil War had something to do with much of the destruction of these buildings in the South. If we are supposed to imagine that cannonballs being lobbed around may have resulted in such things, then who knows what else we might believe. Now, if we look here, we also have amazing what looks like kind of wrought iron metal work here. Just beautiful and intricate. But what really caught my attention was, again, this severe amount of heat. And whatever heat had scorched this here and along this banister and up here, whatever this heat was, it was enough to melt and begin to make the tops of this wrought iron wobble. Wobble and almost perhaps fall off, and then just cooling at the last moment and rehardening into this form. Really amazing picture from 1865. So the first thing we notice here is a lot of posing. A lot of posing in the Civil War. And some very nice shoes here. And this is a Union soldier. And more posing and relaxing. And nobody seems to have an air of distress in any way. Even these men firing rifles don't really seem to be too worried. Very relaxed. And these guys looking like they're having a card game. And this guy's picking his nails. Union soldiers sit by the guns of a captured fort in 1864, Atlanta, Georgia. And again, very relaxed air. Really just having a good old time, it seems. Photo opportunity. No one's really very dirty. And again, for the time period, 1865, we see this amazing architecture in the background. Really amazing. And then we have this picture, really fascinating. The ruins of the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, 1865. And just absolutely amazing to imagine that some cannonballs created all of this rubble. And here we even have some neatly stacked cannons. And perhaps we know nothing about the cannonball. Maybe this was something else, and they've all been gathered up amongst the ruins here. And just an amazing amount of brick. How much cannon fire would it require to create this much brick? What kind of disaster period would create such a pile of brick and ruin? Certainly not some cannonballs. And look at this building. I mean, again, some cannons brought this down. And what was this? You know, here they tell us this was the Confederate capital. But this is really seeming like something else. The base to something much older. And was this a monstrous tower? Just a giant tower, and this was merely the base and the foundation? And this is all the ruin that we're seeing everywhere? Maybe something similar to the towers of Bologna in Italy? And here we're just seeing ruins. I mean, this was amazing. And here again we're told, you know, people lived in log cabins, and Abraham Lincoln himself. And yet we see this amazing mere foundation of a building and mere ruins. And here again, 1865. And, you know, to me, this is looking like any of the most beautiful buildings found anywhere, and just a mere skeleton, as if some blast force came through here and just cooked everything. But yet, it's so well built and so advanced for its time that even here ruins still stand. And it's a shame that these ruins probably don't stand anymore. And what a piece of history this really is. I mean, look at these massive, what appear to be brick columns or supports for this wall or whatever. Just really amazing. And again in front of the Confederate Capitol in 1965. Look at this city. The ruins in 1865, Richmond, Virginia. 1865, less than 100 years after the inception of the nation. And here we have this complete build-out of a city, and yet already in ruins. Look at these spires back here in the background. 1, 2, as if this was a thriving culture. Again, this Greco-Roman temple. And all of this, just beautiful, worldly civilization. And yet now it's in ruins. And we're told that cannonballs did this. Cannonballs and fires somehow cooked all of this out. And really just seeming like the remnants of the destruction. And our reset people arrive and are told to pose. And that's all it is. That's all the Civil War seems to be. And I think that's why it's so civil. And Richmond, Virginia, 1865. Just beautiful. And yet completely cooked out. And all that remains is the well-built brick of these older people. Here, this looks like this must have been some kind of monument or maybe a chimney. But a complete wipeout here. And look at this tower, 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 all along here. And yet, ruins. Nothing but ruins by this point. 1865. Where are the log cabins? And again, more posing. And the good Abraham. This very interesting man. And we have been conditioned to really hold this man on a pedestal from very, very, very early age. We are fed the presidents, and we are taught to almost treat them as gods. And yet, who were these people? When these men with their secret hand in the pocket, and again, just more posing. You know, with this kind of cannon, first of all, I don't even know about this kind of cannon and what kind of projectile was being put into it. But again, the air of the people, just as relaxed as could be. You know, they don't even look like they're the type to be firing such cannons. And just everyone as relaxed and almost bored in some cases as could be in what is supposed to be one of the greatest tragedies of our nation. And again, just a nice day. And another little look at Abe here. And even notice back here, first of all, this ship is really interesting, perhaps repurposed. And this tower back here, really beautiful. Almost looking something of the Orient, if I'm seeing that correctly. Really beautiful. And here's a little image of Richmond, Virginia in 1865. And the aftermath of the Confederate evacuation, in which Richmond's business district, accidentally torched by its own citizens, burned to the ground. The flames extinguished only with the aid of the occupying Federal Army. So here they're saying that this was accidentally torched by its own citizens. Really interesting. And here it looks like some extreme heat on this brick. And it looks like this tree has survived the fire. And that is always our first red flag for a unusual fire. A tree that survives a fire. So here it brought everything down to its knees. And right in the middle, the tree survives. Very unusual, very muddy, and mysterious. And here, look, in 1865, cannonballs at their best. And here's a little image in City Point, Virginia. The wharfs after the explosion of 1864. And we see a bunch of tents and what appear to be the remains of homes' chimneys. Typically the last thing that remains standing after a strong force has swept through an area are the chimneys. Very interesting. And a lot of wood, as usual, and a lot of makeshift tents. And here appears to be a train station in Tennessee, 1864. And really looking like a old style, very castle-like. And even here these entryways remind me of a kind of India flair, kind of Taj Mahal feeling. And again, after my last video on the construction photos of these supposed world's fairs, it really piqued my curiosity to come and look at any and all past photos with a new eye. And really, just every single photo that I see now really seems to be staged. And these seem to be reset people, not people that are engaged in any kind of military activities or people that have seen the horrors of war. No, the people that have been well fed and slept well and really have been having a pretty good old time and probably don't even realize that these photos will be used one day to paint a picture of a civil war. And really, when we look at these photos, everything is seeming very civil indeed. And I've yet to see a single picture of a battle scene or any hardships for that matter. And a little reminder of the preferred means of building in this time period. 1865, General Rawlins at Grant's headquarters. And here's the headquarters. And here a little look at some scouts and guides, 1864. Again, not seeming like a warring people or even scouts of war. Very interesting, very odd. And all of these pictures really just go on and on and on. Just silly, ridiculous pictures of people posing. I mean, really, just a whole war of posing and photo taking. And I'm not going to show them, but there were also pictures of apparent death, and they were equally as ridiculous as anything. And I could absolutely show how many of these death photos were staged, and people's arms and some fists were clenched and feet were propped up, and very unnatural. Very, very unnatural indeed. And here, just to get a little look at an orphan asylum in 1865. They're living in complete wooden structures, and yet we see things like this. And we know exactly where this style comes from. And the griffins on both sides of the gate, and lights, and already beginning to be in ruin. The windows are all busted out. And this is the most beautiful thing in the nation at this time. and it's already in ruin. And this supposed war appears to be something that was just created to wipe everything out. And it really seems as if this is the beginning of our time in America. And based on some of this ruin, it's probably much older. It could be up to 100 years older than these photographs, and it's laid in ruin, as has all of these buildings all throughout the country. And by the time we're taking these pictures and staging them, we've already forgotten. And perhaps some of these characters know the truth, but perhaps not. The orphan asylum, used as a hospital for the wounded, 1865. Here we have Charleston, South Carolina, 1865. A view from the roof of the orphan asylum. Just an amazing city in 1865. What a build-out. What a modern, beautiful build-out. And again, you know, are these the log cabin times? Or is this some kind of a renaissance? Look at these buildings. Just amazing. All throughout. Just a beautiful city. Long before it really should be. And in this picture, I find this very interesting, that this is supposed to be a bomb-proof headquarters that they've built, and as usual, very interesting characters. And yet, what caught my eye was this sandbagging that they've placed around here. Sandbagging in order to make a stronger reinforcement for this structure. And what it really reminds me of is the stonework that we see in South America. And this is very reminiscent of the stonework that we see. And yet, is this what happened? Was the South American stonework really sandbags to begin with that had just hardened into what appears to be stone? Really interesting. And a little off topic. Let us continue. And here is a supposed picture of a famous general, George Armstrong Custer, officer of the Federal Army, 1865. Now, if this doesn't look completely phony, if this seems like a hardened man of battle, then I must be missing something. Really, really interesting. And really staged. And this amazing cathedral in South Carolina, the ruins of the Cathedral of St. John, destroyed in the fire of December of 1861. So again, what kind of fire? Let's just really be logical here. What kind of fire is bringing down brick in this magnitude? You know, they make ovens out of brick. They make fireplaces out of brick. That's the whole idea, is that you can build a fireplace out of this material and not worry about it burning down. And, you know, even if some fire did move through here and burn all the wood out, it's not going to burn the brick and scatter it all over the city in heaping piles like this. And I would just ask us all to consider what kind of force can really do something like this. And it's not fire, and it's not cannonball. So, a truly beautiful cathedral from a truly beautiful time and people, and now ruins in 1865. And you know, this video wasn't supposed to go on so long, but this is just mind-blowing. I mean, absolutely astounding in every way to consider that a city could be left like this. And again, really very little debris. There's really no debris. There's no personal belongings. I mean, all that's left is the most solid of solid materials. and everything else has just been wiped out, and it really appears as if this wipeout occurred once again at least 50 years before this photo. Really, the area is clean and just a mind-blowing picture. So that's it for today. I do hope you enjoyed, and have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.